And lo, vile beasts did rise.
Dude, everyone's been sending me messages like, oh, thanks for being a good sport during the Loporits. That's a section they need to cut down. And I'm like, no, they need to cut down the section when you're running around Rads at Hand asking everybody to tell you things you already know.
But it's an exploration of what you already know while you connect what you already know so that it is what you know. I get why they did it, because that's what real people do in situations when they're solving a case.
Yes.
But in a video game and in a movie, we tend to, condense. And, well, you know what? I like that it happened. I just wanted some carnage, some destruction.
Yes.
Scratches on the floor, a couple of boxes overturned, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. I'm with you. The world is literally in an apocalypse, and we're talking to merchants who are worried about how this is going to impact their business. Like, everyone who thinks that the Loporits is kind of pulling the e-brake on how exciting everything is, I disagree. I think being in Radzathan while the apocalypse is happening and having to have little talkies with shopkeeps, that's pulling the e-brake. We're at least aside on the moon with the Loporits, and it kind of makes sense because we're still isolated up there. When we're actually in the shit, and the game's like, time to talk about civics and the intertwining gears of this society.
Final Fantasy is extremely focused on being realistic at times when it comes to depictions of war. And guess what merchants do during war? They make a lot of money. It's kind of their number one thing they do during that. So it's par for the course.
People are literally in the middle of turning into monsters and murdering each other. Anyway, before we get deep into revisiting everything that just happened, which somehow starts with bunny people, I want to remind everybody that you can catch us playing through our MSQ journey live right here on our YouTube channel. We do our live streams right here on the channel. So if you aren't already subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our live streams. Thanks for subscribing. Also, check out the Clips channel. If you missed some of our streams and you want to check it, this is now a bad read. Subscribe to both. Thank you. I like this section, and people are confused that I like this section.
The bunnies are an interesting case. And I get why people were concerned. The new Mao, all that sort of thing. However, the new Mao weren't building a moon spaceship to, in a comedic way, house all the peoples of not Eorzea, because we don't call it that anymore. However, the whole thing is kind of a big Final Fantasy IV reference, which is lost on us, obviously. And I also feel the great burden of those who have either played the game or are just in love with Vana. Oh my God, y'all. You're just gonna believe her? Just gonna believe Hyland because she did a couple of fancy special effects back in her Realm Reborn? She's off her rocker, in my opinion.
She's the most sus character currently still drawing ether breath.
Now, I do think there is an element, perhaps. Clearly, she has a dog. Maybe she's just contacting a little bit, I thought this form would please you. Does Final Fantasy IV not please you, people of Eorzea? Does this not give you comfort hearing the town music from that beloved game? No, I don't know what I can do for you.
Not at all. Every FF4 track has been my least favorite so far.
You know, if you don't like bunnies, then you could die on the first.
I do
okay?
like the bunnies.
Yeah,
I like the bunnies,
I
though.
give up.
I'm into the bunnies.
No, the bunnies are great because they come in pods. There's like 1 million of them.
Yep.
They are performing a very important task.
They're living in what looks like some kind of Forerunner Halo-ass construct of a massive cavernous artifice. I love it. This whole section, like, I'm not gonna sit here and die on a hill that like this couldn't be cut down a little bit. There could be a little pruning here for just the sake of keeping the momentum rolling, but I didn't mind being steeped in it. I thought it was fun. It really kind of upset the overall underpinning themes of terror. Everything's doomed. We're all gonna die. I enjoyed that. Also, it's my sense of humor. I love that the Loporrits are openly speaking of the death of all things, and they're like,
a calamity of apocalyptic proportions will be visited upon Atheris, bringing an end to all life. Very sad, that.
yes, it's all very terrible. Would you, are the carrots to your liking? Was that going to be fine for the long journey you were about to go on? I love where you're just so close to the worst thing imaginable that it's you're treating it like another day in the office.
It's the fish out of water moment. It's Worf from Star Trek. It's right this way to the escape pods.
It's my favorite part of Cabin in the Woods, which is everyone back at the office that are putting on the whole charade.
Exactly. But it's also not exactly fully functional, which I think adds a really nice layer. Again, excuse me, Mommy Highland people.
Sorry?
Highland, they have no idea what they're doing. They're doing their best. They're doing, what are they doing? They're doing their best. They're not really sure how to make a contingency plan. They're not really sure how to get all the people off the planet into the moon, but at least they have an idea. And I think maybe that is their plan. To just submit an idea, and maybe it's not the best, and maybe that'll spark somebody to come up with a better idea.
I just think it's a humorous, like, this all made sense at the time, and now that it's being deployed, it's a little goofy. Like, I like that. I like at the time when Vana was putting this all together, it all made sense in her head, and then, we get there, and you're just like, wait, it's a little off-putting that adorable bunny people who are going to save us from the apocalypse, but...
It's purposefully flawed. Like primals are.
Also, at the end of this, we literally go to Elpis, where they're just like constantly coming up with ideas and testing it to see if those ideas hold water. And I just feel like the bunnies are like this pet project that Vana had all the way back pre-sundering. And she was just like, I love these things and I finally have a use for them. They'd be perfect apocalypse savior drones.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe it is a favorite little creation that they decide to use, much like a DM inserts their own characters story after story.
I mean, we literally see her with the dog on Elpis.
By the way, thank you, game, for finally saying it aloud. You're supposed to fantasy just kind of the back end of it. It's not Elpis, it's Elpis. You just kind of just kind of the last bit. Oriange finds his place.
Yes, this is my favorite part of this, is the little arc we get with Oriange finding peace and kind of coming to terms with the blood on his hands.
It's a great character moment. I don't think he should be so hard on himself.
Okay,
but also,
right, dude, we agree on this. We agree on this.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm here with you. It's a good moment. What I wanted was one person, anyone, to be like, hey, man, the people who died, they knew what they were getting into. They made their own decisions that got them into that situation. Did you play a part in it? Yes, but it's not like he twisted Minfilia's arm. It's not like he's the reason Moonbrita died. Moonbrita was in the room and was able to affect change. She was right place, wrong time.
It's a butterfly effect,
yeah.
and the various things he's upset about, partially his fault. Doing the Warrior of Darkness thing, partially his fault. But I agree, Minfilia's not your fault. She was very into it.
Yeah, so and I don't think Moonbrita's his fault either.
No, that's like I should have asked her out to dinner so she wasn't in the room when it happened, kind of cosmic stepping stone.
If I hadn't been late that day.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get on the plane, Oriange kind of moment.
Yeah, but other than that, that's like the one thing I want is because I just wanted because it's what I was thinking. I want someone to be my voice in the room of being like, don't be so hard on yourself, bud. But it was still a wonderful moment, and it was just nice to have Oriange be asked to keep yet another secret and him to finally be in a place where he can recognize how that slots into his past deeds and reject it on his own terms. So it's time for the final days to begin anew. We return from the moon to the source, go on a grand tour of telling everybody everything we just learned, find out with a few lines of dialogue from Lucia that it's progressing on saving the poor Garleans that were tempered. But, it's the work continues. And then we go to Charlean. And we get this big scene where everything we learned from the Loporrits is basically just reinforced. Like, we already know at this point that the Forum knew about the moon, knew about the contingency, and had been working with the Loporrits. So this scene, to me, I was like, cool. It's just reinforcing all of this. And we get a nice scene between the twins and their father, where they kind of come to a mutual understanding. And when I say come to a mutual understanding, Fortuno is told that he's coming to a mutual understanding by Alphino and Alizé, which I loved.
And it's a don't get in my way kind of moment. And hey, remember when I said I hope Fortuno ends up crying in a corner? Well, that would turn him into a monster. So maybe that still happens down the road. I'm still enjoying this exploration of the dad that gave up being a dad to save the world so he could be a dad kind of moments. But I also just enjoy the comedy of telephoning to the moon what a bunch of nerds think the world needs and having rabbits interpret it into what people need. Maybe some sort of human resources liaison. HRing way is needed in this situation.
You blue screened my brain. I mean, I don't know. We talked to a bunch of crying people off a ledge later in the story. So you could still have Fortuno abandon all hope. And then the twins go over and be like, hey, dad, just chill. You'll be all right. Talk him out of it. And then they save their father. And then he finally shuts up and starts respecting his kids. We talked to Corral. We learned that the final days have begun in Thabnir. And this points us in the direction of Thabnir and the majority of what we played that we're going to talk about in this video. But we get a little bit of a check-in. I think it's Alamigo, Ishgard. We check in on a couple different places where clearly the monsters we later begin calling blasphemies are starting to appear, which I really locked onto because I thought that just meant that's where we were going after we were done in Thabnir. And oh boy, does this game go in a different direction.
I'm hoping that's what the role quests are. We got to do some really cool exploration of the Sin Eaters in our role quests. So maybe we do get our tour of the world, but it's more on a side quest of environment.
Man. I think that you might be right. Yeah, because the people we were introduced to for the role quests all represent different cities, and multiple of those cities were seen in this exact cutscene.
And while a tour of the world for your final expansion might feel good, in an RPG straight game, non-MMO, I think in an MMO where we can't really calculate everybody's participation in the various expansions, we might not want to destroy them back to back to back. I agree with you. I'd love to see Ishgard go to hell. But I also put a bit of work into the broom, and I might be sad if people are full-blown despairing down there.
Kyle's taking this very personally.
I put a lot of work into Ishgard. I loved doing that expansion. I did a lot of the side stuff. Doma, what if the game just forced my Doman restoration area to go to shit? Well, that wouldn't be very nice. I gave a lot of fish for the children. I gave all my armor there. I still do. So what I'm expecting in those role quests is to see kind of a break even, maybe a couple of monsters. But Thabnir is the new place, which we haven't infused with the hope of our wonderful questing, and it makes sense that it's going first. And that's where the ley lines would be their weakness too. So it's just part of the lore of the world. But also, hey, new expansion, new zone, have that place go bad, so you get to hang out in it the most.
Do you kind of want more of a explanation on where the ley lines are at their weakest? Because it seems doesn't it seem a little convenient that the largest nations just happen to be where this is popping off? Like why isn't this just like happening randomly out in the middle of the ocean and we get some blasphemy fish?
Final Fantasy XIV is a very real game, and having lived in cities, I think they are the hubs of despair in that regard. They're going to be the hubs of emotion, where people are going to be sharing said emotions.
Okay, well, you're getting at what I'm getting at, the point I'm making, but you're not answering my question here. Are we going off of the lore that the game just established, that it's where the flow is at its weakest? Or is it just where despair is greatest? Because right now it sure seems like it's just where despair is greatest. It seems a little convenient that the flow is weak.
I would agree with you, but I think there's one tidbit that might solve all this. There is a throwaway line that Lucia says that when the other towers despawned, it wasn't that bad, which seemed kind of weird, right?
Why would it seem weird?
Well, because the only tower we've really explored in terms of the channeling towers was the Tower of Zot, which was huge and towering, and there were elephants deep inside of it, high up in it. So when they fell, we needed Graha's slow fall. I don't think the other towers were as strong, as well established. The one we did see, which was the Ifrit Tower, had Lizard been like right there in the bottom floor. We didn't see them spanning up to the sky. I don't think it is a coincidence that the perhaps biggest channeling tower is also where the ether is the weakest, having sent the majority of that ether off to the Tower of Babel.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that.
That may not be the case, but that's like the excuse that I've grabbed onto. Also, because I'm recovering from, I really wanted to run like every tower. I wanted to see them all. I thought they were badass.
Oh.
I'm a little sad they're gone. They might come back. You know, there's always that like the apocalypse happens anyway. The everything respawns and everything's at maximum terrible they could do. But seems like we're done with towers.
I think it was a smart call because I don't think there was a way to differentiate them. And if you don't differentiate them, you end up with an Ubisoft-like map vomit game, which I rather enjoy, but not everyone does. And it does make things seem rather homogenous.
And this adds to the fish problem, the trade problem, the land being in pain. Like the Tower of Zot
we caused
was
the fish
messing
problem
up that place. Well, then we couldn't sell the fish. The fish were having trouble getting harvested in the first place.
Yeah, actually, wow, dude, you really might. You may have cracked that egg. You may have figured that out. I buy what you're selling. I'm buying it. I'm buying what you're selling. And I'm buying what this game is selling, because when we go to Thavnir, I love how quickly it ushers us into it. And it's just like, fake satrap shows up and is like, everything's hit the fan. And we get the wonderful intro cutscene with where Emmett delivers exact lines from the actual trailer for Endwalker.
Oh, I didn't put that together. Nice.
Yeah. It's not one for one. It's like the expanded version. Kind of like when you hear a radio cut of a song and then you get the album and you're like, this is so much longer. Why did they shorten this? And we also get like our canonical squid ladies running past the Crystal Mountain, but there's no tower there because turns out the trailer isn't actually a spoiler. Watch whatever you want. This game lies to you. We're off to our first dungeon. The fake satrap A1 is like, oh my God, Vitra took off to the north because that's where a bunch of the blasphemies fled, and Vitra feels a duty to the people that became the blasphemies. Oh yeah, that's the other thing, because we didn't know that until this point, but A1 drops the lore bomb on us that the people just straight up turned into the monsters. Also, dude, oh my God. This is going to be a hard line to find, so we may not actually drop the clip here because I have no freaking idea where Alphino dropped this, but in a previous scene, Alphino even mentions the question I have, which is like, wait, we don't even have creation magics. So, like, what is the final days even going to look like for us? I asked this exact question on stream at one point because I was wondering, I'm like, wait, we're not a Morinthi. We don't have their great and grandiose creation magics that Y'shtola was so impressed by when we visited Amarat. We have nothing like that. We should be creating like the saddest, most easy to dispatch monsters in the world, and we've already gone to Amarat and fought first beasts, or at least simulacrums of them.
Well, and we thought there was going to be some sort of drama, I don't have enough energy to maintain all these porksies kind of moment. I didn't put together, how could I, that this was all building to Moonbreeda, like sacrificing of ether to make things in that way. But now we got Aksha too in there. So the magic of the blasphemies is still partially unknown to us.
It's still murky, right? We just know that like we've just rendered porksies irrelevant. They're no longer a cure because it doesn't matter, because if you turn into a blasphemy, as we find out at the end of the Vanaspati dungeon, your soul is gone. It's basically your ether is consumed when you become one of these blasphemies. So it's like a fate worse than death, which I love a fate worse than death. And I was curious how if this game was even gonna find a fate worse than death after the cure for tempering was found. Now, here we are in Endwalker, and they very quickly and swiftly have made the cure for tempering useless.
super double death.
You must be double dead!
The dungeon's amazing.
It's incredible.
The dungeon had all the fire that Holminster Switch didn't have. the tech, it cranked it to 11. They knew they were going here. They wanted some more fire.
Go back to our Holminster Switch deep dive and laugh at me going, I really wish the farm town had more fire because it looked like it had more fire from a distance.
There was plenty of fire. There was plenty of despair.
Someone even was cheeky and was like, oh, Garrett, if you want more fire from dungeon, just wait. And I thought they were talking about Amarat because Amarat has a ton of fire.
Oh yeah, that is on fire. Yeah, that was a lot of explosions.
They found a way to outfire Amarat.
This dungeon gave me what I wanted on so many levels. They knew what the people wanted. The people wanted to romance that terrible mouth boss and really just stew in it.
Can you find a better way to word that?
Stew in the ground being mouths and having to find the ... one. Having to deal with that mechanic was just so much fun. Second up, we have the Elephant Zerg. This wonderful detached head that is siphoning fire through its trunk.
Detached elephant head.
Well, yeah. Well,
Very
there's elephant people everywhere. There's like a 50-50 chance I was an elephant head. You can follow me. It's doing a fire-water thing, which is just really fun, but man, the maws built into the back of this thing's where its neck would be. What an awesome
becomes the front
creature.
Of the creature.
Yeah.
It's the creature's front. It's the back of the decapitated
wonderful
elephant Hanish people. Yeah, man. The first two bosses already fell out of my head because they're bosses here. They immediately become cannon fodder. Following this, we would fight a ton of both of these afterwards throughout the questing on the back half of the Radzat Han stuff. It's fantastic. And then you and I both love the first beast. It was something that we were both really hyped about when we went through that section all the way back in Amarat and 5.0 at the end of Shadowbringers there. And to give us just what if we just did first beast again, but so much more first beast.
Human centipede parade dragon.
First beast centipede parade dragon.
Yeah. It was cool. It was explosive. I mean, it was kind of dangerous in there. It was fun
nasty.
Experiencing. I mean, we got hit pretty hard in Tower of Zot. I think we made it through Tower of Babel pretty well, but this had a nice little difficulty spike.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. I enjoyed the mechanics. I feel like I pieced it together. I was feeling like a god, and then halfway through I started getting smacked by things. So I felt pretty proud until I didn't. It's a phenomenal dungeon. This is probably my favorite dungeon so far, which it seems a little nutty in my head because Tower of Babel is so grandiose and ends with anima. But I think you and I just love a good just rootin' tootin' monster killing time. And this is Holminster Switch is one of my favorite dungeons, and this just feels like an even more elaborate Holminster Switch.
Yeah, definitely the spiritual successor in that way.
Yeah, I can't say enough nice things about this dungeon.
Well, and the sky, the river of squid ladies descending on the town.
I love the squid ladies. I was hoping for a squid lady boss.
We fought a number of them. I think they did a good job enhancing the new models and raising the threat of them. So when we saw them in the later cutscenes, we knew how serious they could be.
And this is where we find out at the end of this, by the way, is what's going on with the blasphemy. This is where we render Porxies pointless Porxies. Sorry, Porxies, because Y'shtola, once we defeat blasphemy, the named boss, Y'shtola's like, wait a minute, the boss was right there, right? We're like, yeah. She's like, I can't see the beast nor the man that created it, which I guess she can usually see corpses, but she can't see this corpse or any of the other monsters that we defeated along the way. We dropped the bomb that they're not going to the Ethereal Sea. There's no ether to go to the Ethereal Sea.
We did reverse Porxies, so there's still a chance they're not dead, but it's pretty dead as far as dead goes in Final Fantasy XIV.
In a game where there's canonical rebirth, this would be do not press go, do not collect $200, do not be reborn.
So surprise me later if you feel like it, game, but for now, I will assume everybody's dead, and that's an excellent threat.
How do you one-up this in Dawn Trail?
I don't think you do.
That's a problem for Dawn Trail.
Yeah, I think Dawn Trail's point is to have as much fun as possible until it goes hard, surprising you, obviously, and then comes up with a new story. I'm still jonesing for Dawn Trail to be the UFO expansion, like just a bunch of dragons and alligans just crash landing in the Wild West. Oh, that'd be great. Just Roswell it up.
And here's where we, like Estinian, we jump on the Vitra arc. A1 makes a plea to Vitra at the end of the Vanaspati to reveal his true self to his people, but Vitra is clearly 100% not ready.
Yep, Estinian gets his first Link Pearl. Welcome to the club officially.
It's your one friend who doesn't trust cell phones. You finally forced it upon him.
I mean, Estinian's still one of those, like, flip phone kind of guys who doesn't need anything more than that. I was terrified in this moment that we were about to have another faction show up. Now, hear me out. So, in video games, sometimes something claims to be the ending. Sometimes the show says it's the final season, but they introduce a new bad. And I was absolutely worried that some Black Mass Asian or some complete unknown was going around slipping little doom rocks into people's pockets. However, over the course of this exploration of the merchants, we learned that they gave in to despair, full blown. And you don't need the sky to already be on fire in that case.
I feel like we figured it out after the first person we talked to, but then we talked to like 17 more people.
There's a lot of people to talk to. It is a solving of a mystery
That Emmett already told us in Shadowbringers. We don't even have creation magics. So, like, what is the final days even going to look like for us?
Now we put together the Moonbrita-like sacrifice, all that ether, turning into one monster rather than creation magics, which could make a bunch of monsters around you as you continue to survive. We've put that together, and now it's time to save people.
I love this cutscene. I absolutely adore this cutscene where, the beloved character, anxious old lady, gives into despair and causes a chain reaction of a bunch of people turning into blasphemies and it just seeming utterly hopeless. The freaking A1 gets eaten. A child the game shows a child turning and then immediately getting crushed.
Yep.
This cutscene goes so hard and ends with Grahatia being a total boss. And I loved it. I loved him going full Super Saiyan Exarch mode and just inspiring people into not freaking out and not only saving themselves, but their city as a result of taking control of their emotions.
Yeah. He was playing Civ 5, changed his stance to Civic mode after 100 years and more of experience, and threw down. He's such a nervous guy. We picked him as our in-visit, our canonical first in-visit before we go explore the other ones another time. Let's just say it's a handsome switch. His nervousness and his transformation into Exarch, it just compounds his adorableness, his usefulness, his personality. Graha's a great character. I'm also aware that this is like the DM's character. This is Ishikawa's character. Of course he's going to be awesome. But it was very well handled.
He reminds me of you at times.
Thank you.
Kyle's super nervous behind the scenes, and then when it's time to go live, the man finds his stance.
It's go time. Introverted. How did these things work? It's a mystery to even me.
Yeah, it's an absolutely freaking wonderful cutscene.
They had to go hard. They really did, because otherwise your next scene's not going to hold up. We had the scene inside the dungeon, the one with the mom elephant and all the children elephants that turned into monsters all at the same time. Yep. Apparently that wasn't enough. We had to have the kid here stepped on once going into beast mode. If you hadn't done those two things, as dark as they are, there's no way we would have even been concerned about the next part.
I see them as facilitating two different things. One, that we can find a way to save people, and then this next part where we retreat to the small village of Palacus Stand. I see that as proving to us that we don't have to save everybody, that they can actually, they are capable of saving themselves.
Well, I just mean that the writers are willing to threaten children, even little babies. That's all I'm getting at. You're absolutely right what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't kill the baby, though. I mean, if they really wanted to go hard, they would have killed that baby.
I think they made the right call. I don't know about you. I thought it was the right call to not go that hard.
Kill that baby, Garrett 2023.
I've flattered this part enough on stream, all right? So let's reverse it a little bit for the sake of this video, because I got a little messed up by this. Let's say it was bad. Oh, we would have all known it. It would have been the cringiest, most awful. Nobody would have cared about spoilers all over the internet. At the time of this release, if this was poorly done, oh yeah, it would have been horrible. But it wasn't.
Are you meaning to tell me that MMO fans, when a cutscene doesn't land, will publicly drive that cutscene and its poor execution into the ground like some kind of mass stoning?
How can this be?
But to your point, as I was jumping ahead, we find a group of people who have taken refuge near an old temple, and them repeating this mantra, this prayer to themselves to calm their way through the storm was very powerful. And I really enjoyed the sense of community that built for people we really haven't interacted with too much so far.
This is the type of character building that makes me care about like the plight of the everyman. Some about running around Rods and Han just like didn't work for me. And I felt like things were too dangerous for us to be stopping and having such like calm conversations. But here we are running from place to place, trying to save life after life while these lives slip through our fingers, while also constantly interacting with characters like Matsuya and Nidhana and the village elder. And for me, this is just so much more effective. Of course, I don't know. Maybe it's unfair. Characters constantly dying in this section, like characters dying is always going to me, be more interesting than go from point A to point B and carry out economic conversations.
Cities must flow. The city must go on. It is a machine, and the people playing into it have to keep that machine going for their own livelihood.
Needs more random crime like Spider-Man games.
Duty also makes people calm in those situations. So getting out into the forest, where things are a lot more chaotic, where life can be a lot more peaceful, that juxtaposition just works.
So what did you think about the whole point of all of this? The game is trying to tell us that these people are capable of saving themselves, and it all just comes down to basically staying calm. And the people of Palakistan find strength in themselves through various means. We have a mass prayer scene, which calms an entire group of people. But we also just make chai tea with Nidhana and pass it out, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's comforting," which I love.
Chai tea's good,
because
yeah.
if that was happening, that's what happens with me when when I have a rough day, I avert despair by ordering pizza.
It's so smartly done. At the end of the day, there are a lot of pitfalls. I think the game took a very big risk. At the time this was released, in the time period it was made, they went for the hope and despair storyline. And that is a choice. Lots of games don't. I've seen pain elementals. How do you harvest enough pain to make an elemental? Video games are full of personifications of mental fatigue. Some are respectful, some aren't. This game chose to go with hope and despair. Two absolute things that everybody has experience with. And whatever that max or minimum may be, that's the most you have personally experienced, and this game is going to speak to you. It's smart as hell. It's a risk. Clearly, the team had a lot of trust in each other. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. Clearly, the production side of things had a lot of trust in the team. Otherwise, this wouldn't have gotten off the ground floor. It's a scary thing to make, but they did it. A running elephant man held a child and you cared. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but it's done with respect at the end of the day.
Anything reduced enough can seem ridiculous, but it is an absurd premise. And this is what you and I talk about this a lot. This comes up on stream constantly, which is how difficult it can be to recommend Final Fantasy XIV from the standpoint of the story is great, because you can't really back up the recommendation without spoilers, and even with spoilers, it's such a long game. It is such a deep and long arcing experience that where would you even go if you just wanted to be like, if you just wanted to tell somebody? And this is why I am not in the camp of constant worries about spoilers. If you wanted to spoil Amarat, how would you do that quickly? If you wanted to spoil this sequence, like if Matsuya running with the child was affected for you, and it was for me and for you, you can go watch our stream. It's available. It hit us both pretty hard. How could you even effectively spoil that for somebody? I don't know. Like, what do if I go to somebody, I'm like, yo, the scene where this elephant man runs through the woods carrying a child. The child starts to turn into a monster. I haven't explained to you how these monsters work, but just trust me, they're turning into a monster. And then the elephant man starts to turn into a monster himself. And then a beautiful elf man with bangs that I would die for flies out of the sky, saves the baby and child with a dragon, and they don't turn into monsters. And it was moving. It's not going to work for anyone. You have to go on this journey. You have to see it. Like, even if you know that this scene is coming up, seeing it in context, the context is everything with this story. Anyway, after Matsuya and the baby are saved, I want to give Matsuya credit by his own actions, but also the actions of Vitra and Asthenian. Vitra finally has a moment. Vitra realizes he needs to publicly lead his people. And he starts small with just a little village. It's just like, I'm just going to test that out. Like, hey, everyone. I've been a dragon leader the whole time.
I'm the satrap. What do you think?
Everyone's chill with it.
It is a fantasy world. Might land a little rougher in our world, but yeah.
14
went
does,
okay.
One of my favorite things about 14 is it does not wallow in needless drama.
Yes.
I enjoy it. You and I constantly talk about how much we don't like misunderstandings as a plot device in fiction, and they really just don't do it. They just don't do it in Final Fantasy XIV. The most unrealistic thing about Final Fantasy XIV is that everyone is well-adjusted and talks about their feelings.
Well, that's the fantasy dream part of it. the message they're hoping to share.
Imagine respecting people's thoughts.
So the forum shows up in all their white robe glory, and their veils, and their fortunos, walks up to the newly revealed satrap and gives him the lowdown. About the moon, they're just talking real casual. Hey, we have a spaceship, it goes to the moon, we got like a transport. When you're ready, let's go.
The framing of this is interesting because we just went through like hours of content of watching the Hanish people learn to save themselves and realize that it's worth saving themselves and their nation, only for the forum to show up and be like, hey, we got to get out of jail free card. You want to just abandon all this and start over on, I don't know, the Dragon Planet? I don't know where the ship's going. Where's the ship going? Is the ship the pizza on the logo? I still don't know.
The pizza is the transport, which I believe is going to be an elegant transport, because all the little circles and stuff on it. And they have a spaceship that they can use to get. The moon can't park on the planet. We got to get to the moon somehow, which I guess might be a hole in Hyland's plan, but there's a couple holes in the plan, so, let's not worry about it. But obviously, since talking to the Loporits, we have noted a hole in this entire scheme. What about the reflections? There's people on there we care about, and of course, Reen has been elevated to mascot of people we care about on other planes of existence. So let's come up with a new plan, a better plan. But Vitra also throws a little bit of bonus reason here that I really like.
Yet I wonder, is this truly the way? Is there a future to be built for us beyond this star, our father deemed the last bastion of hope?
Vitra's on our side to find an alternative plan than abandoning this. And as we noted in Omega, Barren Star, Burn Star, there's not a lot of places to go should we all load up into the moon. The carrots might hold out, but it doesn't seem like a good existence.
No, and I think concern for the reflections is only one part of it. I really do think that the whole reason we spent so much time in Thabnar here is to also remind us that there's also things here worth saving. That's been the argument of that's been the arc of all of Final Fantasy XIV. That's what we were fighting Emmett for. We were worth saving. The source is worth saving as much as the first, as much as all of the reflections. While the dialogue delivery of the forum doesn't do much for me because I'm like, yeah, we already know. Yeah, spoiler alert, you want people to go to the moon. Cool. But to me, it falls flat and Fortuno still feels like a tool to me is because they do not care. To them, it's like survival above all else, continuation, preservation of knowledge above all else. It's like, yeah, but what about the world you do have, what about the cultures and the nations and the people? Do we all want that homogenized to bland carrots on a spaceship?
And the beautiful message of people are stronger than you think. Razat Han didn't go into martial law. Don't be sad. Don't be sad over the loudspeakers all day long. Which seems a little real at times. We're all in this together on repeat in the grocery store.
Oh my God. Anyway, I think the point we're meant to take away here is that we don't want to have to resort to escaping on the moon. Does the moon show up in the Dawn Trail trailer?
I don't know, actually.
I don't either.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Oh.